Here's a bold prediction for you. What if the Canadian real estate market is starting to rebound? Hey there, welcome back to Prairie Real Estate. My name is 𝗥𝗲𝗿𝗁, real estate agent in Regina, Saskatchewan. That's my trusted assistant, 𝗥𝗲𝗿𝗁. This is the December 2024 monthly Canadian real estate market update. And yes, the data right now is pointing more towards a Canadian real estate market that is rebounding, not rebounded, that would be different, than a Canadian real estate market that is crashing or has crashed. We'll be looking at individual cities here because the data from the national stats doesn't really give the true picture. So we're going from Victoria all the way to Halifax and looking at individual cities here. But of course, we're going to start off with another one of my patented, terrible, bad dad jokes. What do you call a moose without a name? Anonymous. If you have a terrible joke that I can use in a future episode, put it in the comments below. Let's get into this month's Canadian real estate market update. Do you want me to handpick a great real estate agent for you from my network of agents across the country? In the description of this video, you're going to see a link to my calendar where you can book me in for a call. I'm going to learn about what's important to you, an agent, and then get you the perfect agent to help you find that great house. If you look at home sale numbers for the last 10 years in Victoria for the month of November, half are better than this past November and half are worse. But this past November was also significantly better than the past 2 years. That's a trend we're seeing play out across the country right now. Interestingly enough, in Victoria, a trend that's different than the rest of the country is we're actually seeing a larger increase in condo sales than single family homes. The rest of the country, that's basically flipped, and I would attribute that mainly to the demographics in Victoria more than anything else. Another interesting thing that we saw this month was a relatively slow month for new listing, second lowest in terms of compared to the 5-year average we've had all year. This is the time of year though that new listings typically kind of fall off a cliff as people take their homes off the market or choose not to sell in the cooler months. The good news for home buyers in Victoria is that on paper, there's a lot more choice with more active inventory than there has been in a very long time. But agents in Victoria are telling me a fairly similar story to what I'm hearing in Vancouver as well, and that a large number of the active listings really aren't that great, kind of junky, overpriced, don't show very well. The good listings are still selling quite quickly, and buyers are feeling frustrated that they can't find very many good listings. So if you see a good listing, try to get out and see it as quickly as you can. What I didn't expect to see this time of year in Victoria was month-over-month price increases. That's what we've seen going on with the benchmark price the last couple of months. Usually this is the time of year that prices are declining. They typically bottom out and then start increasing again in the spring. So we'll have to see if this is just a little blip or maybe a starting of a larger trend. Last month in the Vancouver real estate market, I was talking about an abnormally strong month of sales that I think most people weren't expecting. This month, on the other hand, looks like things are a little bit slower, but in reality, it's very middle of the pack for the last decade and significantly busier than the previous 2 years. We went into 2024 with a lot of people talking about a wave of new listings from mainly distressed sellers that was going to hit the Vancouver real estate market. Now, we still have 1 month to go, but it looks like Vancouver is going to end the year with about 60,000 new listings. The long-term average is 55,000, so not a massive uptick outside of really that downtown condo market where they've got a lot of inventory that's hitting the market. We're still not seeing this wave of distressed sellers. Maybe it'll happen in 2025, but it hasn't happened at all yet in 2024. Slower sales push active inventory up to levels they haven't seen in over a decade. So on paper, as a buyer, it seems like you would have a lot more choice in Vancouver, but agents are telling me that the majority of their buyers are actually feeling frustrated with what they're seeing in the market because the majority of what's out there, they're considering junk, meaning it's overpriced, it doesn't show well, and it's just not what their buyers are actually looking for. That lack of quality inventory, I feel, is a big factor as to why home prices really haven't changed much this year in Vancouver. You know, down 1% year over year, basically unchanged month over month. So the properties that are selling, those ones that buyers are finding attractive, are selling essentially at the same price as they were a year ago. No real price movement down, although overall we are seeing prices trend down. That's typical for this time of year. Usually January, February-ish is when you see that trend reverse and prices start working their way back up into the spring market. I expect that's what we'll see a repeat of in 2025. When home sales are double-digit above the 5-year rolling average, including the 5 best years that we've ever seen in Calgary for the number of homes sold, it means that the Calgary real estate market is very busy, even if it is slowing down. And make no mistake, the Calgary real estate market is slowing down right now. The good news for home buyers in Calgary is that they have more choice, as in more active listings, than they've had since 2019. But we are still seeing multiple offers on a number of properties in Calgary. Unlike though in the past where there was 8, 9, 10 offers in a house, we're more commonly seeing 2, 3, sometimes 4 offers. So less competition between buyers because of more available listings. The worry I do have though is that the pace of new listings is slowing down. So will that mean we'll see active inventory decline as well? We'll have to wait and see, but it's not getting better for home buyers. When it comes to home prices, we've seen townhouses increase about 7% year over year, and apartment style condos up 9% year over year. A large part of that is due to the fact that single family homes had shot up so much in price, making them a little less attainable or affordable for home buyers, and so they're forced to go to the more affordable choices, which end up being townhouses and apartment style condos. Edmonton is clearly the hottest real estate market in Alberta right now, and one of the hottest in Canada. Year to date, there's been over 27,000 homes sold. We still have 1 month to go. The next best year ever in the history of Edmonton, 2021, they had 25,000 homes sold in the month. Now, that being said, November was actually comparatively one of the slower months this year in Edmonton. So does that mean the Edmonton real estate market is starting to turn like we've seen in the Calgary real estate market? I'm not really ready to say that just yet. In terms of what types of homes are selling the most right now, single family homes have the largest year-over-year increase, followed by semi-detached, then townhouses, and finally condos. So right now, the Toronto and Vancouver investors haven't quite figured out the Edmonton investment market and condo market, because that's typically what they're looking to buy, but they're probably coming. Days on market Edmonton has trended back up to 41, but please don't mistake that as, hey, if you see a great new listing, don't worry, it'll still be there next month. The good ones are selling really quickly. They're not going to be around for 41 days. And that days on market also includes the conditional period, which is typically, going to be a week, 10, sometimes 14 days. It does look like though that home prices have peaked out in Edmonton. We're trending down right now, and that trend I expect will continue until they typically start to turn around in January, February. So anticipate going into 2025, that's when you'll probably see prices start increasing again. If you told me at the beginning of the year that with 5 and 6% interest rates, Regina would set a record for the most number of homes sold, especially when we already didn't have a ton of houses for sale, I would have laughed at you. And yet at the time of this recording, Regina has now set a record for the most number of homes ever sold in a single year, and we still have the rest of the month to go. And I can't stress enough that this happened in a market where most of the year we have seen half of the number of homes for sale than we would typically see. The 500 homes that are for sale right now is by far the lowest I have ever seen going into December in my entire career. We did at least see more new listings this month, which is good to see. But this entire year, we've seen new listings being kind of 10% above the 5-year average, and the next month, they're 10% below the 5-year average. We're likely going to see the year end with about 5 to 10% fewer homes listed for sale than we typically do through the course of the entire year. Looking forward into 2025, personally, I think we're going to see more new listings come to the market as we see homeowners coming up for renewals, and they're going to decide, okay, well, now I have to pay a higher interest rate, so I'm going to put my house up for sale and make that move up purchase now. We haven't seen that big wave of people that were expected to have to sell their home because of higher interest rates yet. We may see a little bit of that in 2020, but personally, I don't think that's going to have a huge impact on the Regina real estate market specifically. Looking at home prices, you can see that composite benchmark price, that's up 4% on the year. But when you break it out by individual property types, single family homes, those are up 5%. Apartment style condos are up 8%. And your townhouse style properties, those are up a staggering 12% for the year. 380 homes selling in November in Saskatoon is astounding. And then add in for the fact that basically an entire week of the month got wiped out with 2 massive snowstorms, it makes that number even more impressive. What might be even more interesting though, is that 280 of those sales, or 75%, were under $500,000, and 96% of them were under the Canadian average home price of $700,000, meaning that the hottest real estate market in Canada, at least that's what I'm calling Saskatoon, is also one of the most affordable housing markets in Canada. And it's interesting to see those two going together. But if you're somebody from Toronto and Vancouver listening, this next statement is probably going to make you chuckle. When I was talking with agents in Saskatoon, one of them said, We even had 4 homes sell for over $1 million in the month, and they were astounded at that. The good news for home buyers is that we did see that jump in new listings. Unfortunately, though, that seems to have just facilitated more sales happening in the month because active listings really didn't change much at all. And of course, we're continuing to see home prices year over year up significantly. But this is the time of year where home prices typically decline a little bit in Saskatoon, and it appears what we're going to see here for the balance of the year. If 800 homes sell in December in Winnipeg, which is very likely, then 2024 will end the year being the 3rd busiest year for home sales Winnipeg's ever had. They had over 16,000 homes sell in 2020 and over 18,000 homes sold the year in 2021. When it comes to new listings, it's kind of a tale of the beginning of the year versus the end of the year. The first 6 months of the year, new listings were always above that 5-year average. The back 6 months of the year, we've seen them below the 5-year average. Active inventory looks like it's up a fair bit, but that's really because the numbers are skewed by how low inventory was in 2021 when they had only 1,700 homes for sale this time of year, and a little bit with what happened in 20 and 22 when they had 2,300 and 2,600 homes for sale this time of year, respectively. Talking with agents in the Winnipeg real estate market, they're telling me that they're seeing more buyers kind of getting off the fence into the market, as you can see by the sales. And part of what's driving them into the market is lower interest rates being available for fixed rates, and of course the Bank of Canada dropping rates as well. They're also saying that buyers are getting more aggressive in their offers, so we're seeing multiple offers becoming more common again, and we're seeing less conditions like inspections and financing on those offers as well. The headlines continue to talk about the crash in the condo market, and for the most part, that's relatively accurate, but it's not telling the full picture because the rest of the Toronto real estate market is starting to heat back up a little bit. So how could I possibly say that the Toronto real estate market is heating up when sales are down 13%? Well, what is really surprising is that we're actually more homes sold in November this year than September. And yes, we did see that bump in October, but seeing more home sales in November than September, that's something that almost never happens in the Toronto real estate market, regardless of how busy the year is. Another month goes by and we still haven't seen the wave of distressed sellers that are supposed to be hitting the Toronto real estate market anytime now. Of course, again, condo market, that's a whole different animal right now, but the actual new listing levels are pretty close to the long-term, especially pre-pandemic levels. But it is active inventory where you're really starting to see some pretty astounding numbers. Active inventory right now is double what it was last year and up 191%. I mean, these numbers are just astounding. So you as a home buyer in Toronto haven't had more choice than you do right now since 2008. That was the last time I could find inventory levels at this time of year over 20,000 in the city of Toronto. But one thing that I sure didn't have on my bingo card was home prices increasing in Toronto in November. Yes, the benchmark price, still down year over year, actually increased month over month, as did the median price. Didn't expect either of those. When you break it out by individual housing types, single family homes pricing up, townhouses essentially flat, condos outside of the downtown core are basically flat, but the downtown condos, that's where the bleeding is really happening right now, and prices are decreasing the most. I don't think you could say the Ottawa real estate market has rebounded, but I think you could say it is rebounding, with sales now more in line with pre-pandemic typical levels and up 45% over the previous 2 years. The good news for those looking to buy a house in Ottawa is that with new listings being kind of above that 5-year average for basically the entire year, you've got more choice every single month to look at. Active inventory is up 117%, but that number is a really deceiving one because there is still a few years left in this 5-year rolling average where Ottawa inventory was chronically low, down to in some points 2 weeks of inventory. The current levels are actually more in line of the pre kind of 2017-ish numbers when there was usually 4,000 or 5,000 homes for sale this time of year in Ottawa. And when you're looking at home prices, they're up 2% for that composite benchmark price. Single family homes are up 2%. Townhouses basically unchanged for the year, and condos, those are seeing price declines. They're down about 4% year over year. With the way things are going in the Montreal real estate market right now, we might spend most of 2025 talking about Montreal as Canada's hottest real estate market. Not only were sales up versus that 5-year rolling average, 46% versus the previous year, and outside of 2020 and 2021, they've never had a busier November in the last 10 years. And outside of the big bumps we saw in new listings in April and May, Montreal has seen new listings below that 5-year average basically all year long. The active inventory number, although up significantly versus the 5-year rolling average, is really deceiving because back in 2021, there was under 8,500 homes for sale at this time of year. So that really skews the average. If you go look kind of pre-2017, 2018, it was typical that this time of year, the Montreal real estate market would have 25-ish thousand homes for sale. So the 17,000 homes for sale right now would actually be considerably lower. Agents in Montreal are telling me that they've seen a big uptick in activity. Now, that's something they've been saying for quite a while, but now we're seeing more and more common with multiple offers on homes, especially single family homes and townhouses. The condo market is still slower, not seeing a lot of multiple offers there. But if you are looking to buy in Montreal, not a ton of inventory, even though again, 17,000 for sale right now. Likely there's going to be more in the spring, but you're also probably going to face more competition as more buyers come out and start looking in the spring months as well. So it's kind of a balancing act as to when is the right time to buy. It feels like we've kind of hit a new normal for the Halifax real estate market, even though a lot of these numbers they talk about here are below or above the 5-year average because they're skewed so badly by some of the activity that Halifax had in 2019, 2020, and 2021. If you take, for example, sales, there were 600 homes sold in the month in both 2019 and 2020. This past month would have actually been the second busiest Halifax has had outside of those 2 years. New listings, it's a similar story. Back in 2020, there were 900 homes listed in November. And in fact, right now, this past November would have been the second fewest homes listed in Halifax outside of 2020. Active inventory is where these numbers get really scary. Right now, we're just back below 1,000. But if you go back to 2021, there was less than 200 homes for sale at this time of year in Halifax. You go back 1 year previous to that, there was 950 homes for sale. That is how fast inventory dropped in Halifax as the real estate market really picked up pace back then. When I'm talking with agents in Halifax, they're wondering, is this late season push really something that's going to continue into 2025? Or is it just a blip? They're still seeing that about 30% of properties in Halifax are selling over asking price. When it comes to what are the busiest segments of the market, starter homes and the affordable new construction segment, kind of no-brainer there. Condos are basically dead, they're saying. The luxury market is slowing down, and the periphery areas around Halifax is where things are slower. Inside Halifax proper, much busier. Now I want to know what you guys have to say. Is the Canadian real estate market rebounding, or is this just another dead cat bounce on the way to the inevitable Canadian real estate market crash that is just around the corner? And if you love knowing what's going on in the Canadian real estate market, you should check out right here, which is my most recent Canadian weekly news recap, where I give my thoughts and opinions on what I think the most interesting Canadian real estate news topics. As always, thanks very much for watching.